Hello and welcome everyone to another video. So in these particular times we cannot test the autopilot updates, so basically all we can do is drool about the future. And that future is, amongst other things, of course, the Next Gen Roadster. So I've been thinking about the Next Gen Roadster for the past few days, thinking when will it come and how awesome it will be. But I've also managed to come up with a top 10 list, a wish list of features that I would like to see in the actual Roadster. So let's dive into that. Now before we begin, we need to acknowledge, of course, that all we have now is the prototype, and it is per definition a prototype, so things can change. But one of the first things I noticed about the prototype, both in the diecast model and in the actual car that was unveiled, is there is currently no frunk available. So a car is not a Tesla unless it has a frunk. So Tesla, first request, let's have some frunk space there to get some additional cargo space. My second feature request basically comes from a video that I saw recently about the Volkswagen ID.3 and the way it uses a heads-up display to show the navigation, but also with a depth perspective. So the arrows are projected onto the screen in the place of the road where you need to turn, for example. So yeah, I think that's really neat, but Tesla could step up that game a little bit more, because they have the AR glass patent that they already have for manufacturing aids. It's kind of like the Google Glass, but they could make the entire windshield not project onto that windshield, but actually have it as a kind of translucent display and then display information on there. Especially with the minimalist approach of the interior, it would be nice to have that. Now they could also have some kind of HUD, a heads-up display, but most implementations that I've seen so far are really ugly. You either have this little plastic thingy that it reflects upon, or you rely on the reflection of the windshield itself to project something like from a mobile phone, projecting it up and then onto you. But I don't really like those solutions, because it also is dependent on the reflectiveness of the windshield itself and the lighting conditions. So if it could actually display as an active display, that would be a lot better. Now for the third feature request, I basically saw this on a McLaren recently and I thought it was really cool. That is the rooftop that is removable, right? That should be electrochromatic. So it's a glass rooftop at the top, right? And it's translucent, of course, because it's glass. But you should be able to select whether you want it completely open to get more a roomier cabin and to get more light into the cabin for those dark days. Or when the sun is really shining, with a push of the button, you could actually tint the window because it's electrochromatic by definition. And that could really darken the window a lot, and that basically would help you with some sunshade as well, or with some privacy in other cases, for example. So yeah, that would be really great if Tesla could implement that. I've already tweeted that suggestion a couple of times to Elon, never got a response back, but I'm hoping it's somewhere on the radar. Number 4. Give us the biggest battery size that's possible for this car. And it needs to be a smackdown to gasoline cars. Then make sure that we have the biggest battery ever. And I think that is achievable. I mean, we already have a promise of a 200 kilowatt hour battery. Now, Battery Investor Day is coming, and I expect some really cool stuff there. I don't think it's going to happen in April because of the whole situation that we're in now. It will be postponed, I guess, until later this year. But I expect a new chemistry to be announced, and maybe that will be exclusively for the Roadster because it's still expensive. I don't know, but I expect that. And I also expect something around the acquisition of Maxwell with regards to supercapacitors. So what could be the cases, for example, for the hard acceleration and regen braking, supercapacitors are used to store a huge amount of energy and then gradually let that seep into the battery or replenish it from the battery for another launch, for example. So those are things that are theoretically possible. If Tesla is going to implement them or whether or not they're going to implement them, we don't know, of course, but hopefully we'll see something in that area. Now, there's also talks of the Model S being or getting a new battery pack. That would be a 110 kilowatt hour pack. I think that would mean that a 220 kilowatt hour pack would be possible for the Roadster. Right now they achieve that same 200 kilowatt hours by just implementing a double P100D pack, but the pack is not double the pack, it's just the cells that are stacked, and the outer package is just one pack. So it's about 80% of the height, which is still like this high, probably, maybe a little bit taller. So that's still a huge battery, and I'm hoping they could lower the car a little bit more so it becomes more of a sports car. And yeah, maybe with the new chemistry they are able to do it in a single layer of batteries. We'll just have to wait and see, but give us the maximum amount of battery that is possible, not only for long distance trips but also for the increased performance that it carries. Now for request number 5, that is basically tied into the fact that we will have a very large battery, and if you want to start supercharging that battery, it's going to take a very long time. So why not provide a dual charge port and have it supercharge on multiple superchargers on multiple stalls at the same time? We've seen it done with the Semi, so we know it is possible. So perhaps that will trickle into the Roadster design also. And when you have 2 stalls available, then you can charge up in about half the time it would take to charge up to 200 kilowatt hours. Sorry. Now, the Model 3 gets 250 kilowatt capable charging. I don't know if we could just double that with 2 stalls to 500 kilowatt charging. That would be really awesome.
1.21 gigawatts!
But yeah, at least let's say 400 kilowatt charging, and yeah, that will get things moving a lot faster, of course. And also because it's such a big battery, I think we could maintain a higher charge rate with better cooling also, and then yeah, maybe up to 50% at those 250 to 400 kilowatt charge rates. So that would be awesome if that were a possibility. Otherwise, a Roadster would hog the stall really long, and that of course blocks other people from using the stall. Feature request number 6 is a rather easy one. It's about the design, and I would keep the design as is as much as possible. I really like the fact that there are no side view mirrors, and this is already legal in Europe and Japan. So especially for the European version, make sure that we don't get side view mirrors. The question is then, of course, where will the displays be placed? Will it be in front of you? Will we have like a curved dash that has some displays where or close to the mirrors but on the inside? That is something for Tesla to solve, but not like the Audi e-tron with the ugly camera sticking out, right? We have the fender cameras that are looking backwards, so those can probably be used as our rear view cameras. Also the door handles, there are no door handles on the car at the moment. You just get this swiping motion on the door pillar, and yeah, that is great. Also, the sleek design of the steering wheel. It's a special car, so it deserves a special steering wheel. So I'd like to keep that as well, but I'm not sure whether or not that is feasible to keep that in the production car. Number 7 is all about the performance. I'd like to see the optimal cooling that is possible to get multiple high performance laps on the Nürburgring. Not that I'm going to drive it on the Nürburgring all the time, but just to get that performance. You can drive long stretches on the Autobahn, you can keep accelerating, decelerating without getting overheating and all that stuff. A lot of that is already available within the Model 3. They have a track mode in Model 3 now, which optimizes a few things to allow for more performance on the track. I think they will further optimize this for the Roadster, so it will actually be able to compete maybe even in a 24-hour race or something. That would be awesome if it would be capable of doing that kind of thing. So besides optimizing the BMS and the cooling strategy for the battery and the motors, of course, we arrive at number 8, which is performance itself. I would like to see the Roadster keep its performance all the way up until, let's say, 20% of the battery. Right now, if I'm driving a P100D, a Model S, and if you go below 80%, especially below 70%, you really feel that the performance is tapering off and it's not as fast anymore, or not as quick anymore, I should say. So with the Roadster, we should be able to do launch after launch after launch, all the way down to 20%, no problem. Especially for demos, and not to have to charge it all the way to 200 kilowatt hours each time you drive the car and you want to do a launch, for example. Now, I was lucky enough to be able to get a ride in the Roadster when it was unveiled, and I was one of the last people to actually ride in it, and I have to say the battery was down to 69%, and even at that point it was still pulling way harder than my P100D was doing. So it didn't show signs of letting off, but maybe just Tesla removed all the safeties for that evening just to get the demonstrations right for everybody. I don't know, maybe it's already in place that the cooling is better and the limits of the system are just a lot higher than what the P100D battery can handle. But yeah, so high performance all the way up to 20% battery. As for number 9, I would like to see the active air suspension available on the Roadster. And it would have to have multiple functionalities or multiple features within that. So first you'd have a very comfortable setting for long distance driving and for cruising on the highways. And it would have to have a very firm setting for driving on the track. So that's a given. But also with the active air suspension, it's going to be a low car, and I'm especially worried about that huge diffuser at the back, for scraping that on speed bumps. So the AI from the front cameras could be used to detect speed bumps. It will have to anyway for reducing the speed with full self-drive features, and then just raise the suspension for the car for the speed bump automatically, so you don't scrape the car or that probably very costly diffuser in the rear. And then number 10, the last one in the list, but definitely not the least one, is of course the SpaceX option package. Now what we know so far is very little. There would be 10 cold gas thrusters, like on the Falcon 9, and the Falcon Heavy, of course. 10 of those seamlessly integrated all around the car. And there would be 2 COPV tanks inside the car, and those would take up the space of the rear seats. Now the rear seats are not really usable as seats. They're more storage space, but most importantly, yeah, there's no other car in the world that will have this, or probably will ever have this. So it would be, I think it would make the Roadster a collector's item in that configuration. Now, of course, there are going to be a lot of problems, especially in Europe, with homologation, because they are going to get that car and they're going to say like, what do we need to do with this? Are they going to consider that as an alternate means of propulsion? Is it just going to be an option that is going to be like some kind of boost mode, and they're going to consider it that way? Or are they going to be scared like they are for the whole FSD thing, and are they going to prohibit the use of that feature? We don't know. We'll only know once we get to that point. Now, how that option package might work and how much that might cost, I'll do a separate video on that soon. That requires some more investigation into aerodynamics and active aerodynamics and all that kind of stuff. So I'll do a video about that really soon. But for now, yeah, the SpaceX option package, that would be really awesome to have that. Now those are the features that I would like to see on the car itself, but I do have a specific bonus request for Tesla, and that is that Tesla makes it mandatory for everybody that buys or gets a Roadster from the referral program to follow a performance driving course with the car before you get the car. I know that Renault did this a few years back with, or quite a few years back, with the Clio Williams, I believe it was. You had to follow a performance driving course, you had to take a test. If you didn't succeed in that test, you didn't get the car. I mean, we're talking about probably around 2000 brake horsepower for the car. You're talking about speeds of 250 plus miles an hour. This is a real car that requires your attention, and I think 90 to 95% of people that can actually buy such a car or will buy such a car, will get such a car, is not capable of handling all that power, right? I would very much welcome such a driving course, and it's all in the name of safety. Right, because it's going to be, in some cases, literally a rocket on wheels, and that's going to be dangerous on the road, and you have to make sure that you know what you're doing. So Tesla, I said it with the P100D already, but for this car, definitely do this. Alright, so these are the top 10 feature requests that I have for the Next Gen Roadster. Now, some of them are quite ludicrous and maybe technically very difficult, but it's Tesla. They've done the impossible already, so they can take a few of my hints as well and make a few nice other possibilities. Now, have I missed a few interesting things? Let me know in the comments below, and also make sure to subscribe using that button down there, and make sure you click that little bell icon so you don't miss out on any new videos. And for now, thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one. Bye bye.